Welcome to the Leadership Purpose with Dr. Robin podcast. I'm your host, Robin L. Owens, Ph.D., and this is where we dive in each week to give advice, tools, and tips for high-achieving, purpose-minded women who've written nonfiction books and want to amplify their message beyond the book. I'm a college professor, and when I'm not doing that, I am speaking, coaching, mentoring, and teaching high-achieving women who have written books how to use their books to make a bigger difference, have more impact, and purpose. Okay, let's dive in. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Leadership Purpose with Dr. Robin podcast. So glad you're here and that you take time to listen into the podcast. Really appreciate you. And in the last episode, we talked about consultants who have written books, but didn't really see themselves as authors. And that describes me. I was one of those persons too. So I encourage myself and you to strengthen your sense of identity as an author. And I gave you some tips to do that. So if you haven't listened to that episode, if you missed it, go back and listen to it. But today we're continuing in the vein of identity as an author. And I know most of us have a few professional identities. And for example, for myself, I am an author. See how I said that first with pride. I'm an author, speaker, professor, podcast host, and I can name a few others, but you get the point, right? We have a variety of professional identities. And in the last episode, I was talking about how my author identity, because it didn't take priority in terms of time in my day, it wasn't the first thing that came to mind. And so I learned how to embrace it and the impact of that. Okay. So now once I got grounded in my identity as an author, and by the way, I'm sharing my journey in hopes that it'll be helpful for you in your journey. So that's why I'm reflecting on my experience in hopes that you find some value in it. All right. So once I got grounded in my identity as an author, I started asking myself, what is the overall role that keeps all the pieces of my professional identity puzzle together in a way that will help me amplify my message beyond my book and do that with peace, purpose, and profits? And I started thinking about a term that I hear a lot these days, and that term is thought leader. Have you been hearing that? You see yourself as a thought leader? Well, I asked myself, how does that play out in my overall work? And the answer came to me. And this is the answer that came to me. It is a way to provide a frame around all the other professional identities I have. As I mentioned before, author, speaker, professor, podcast host, to name a few. And seeing myself or thinking about the term thought leader could provide a springboard for me to move forward in my work. So that's the answer that came to me when I asked, what's the role? It could provide a springboard for me to move forward with my work. And it's a frame around all the others. So that's thought leader. What is a thought leader? Well, a thought leader, think about it this way. The thought leader designation is not contingent upon a particular title or role in an organization necessarily. A thought leader is a particular type of leader. Now, we all know that this podcast is called Leadership Purpose. And when you hear the word leadership, it probably brings up particular images in your mind. I know it has for people who I've spoken to when I tell them the name of the podcast, and they think of leadership in terms of a title in an organization, such as CEO, which of course it could be that, but in my thinking, it's not limited to that. Okay, so but now here today, we're talking about a particular type of leader, a thought leader. And a thought leader is one who is driven to stretch people's minds, to encourage them, and even dare them to think deeply, differently, and in a particular direction. And that direction is forward. Most thought leaders not only have a command on their subject area, they're passionate about it, and they're eager to share their knowledge with others to benefit individuals, a company, an organization, or a cause. And thought leaders are known for what they know. So that's the difference. They just don't know it, this area of expertise that they have. They're known for it. All right, so that is thought leader. But what about thought leadership? Well, here's a short definition of thought leadership. Thought leadership is the expression of innovative thinking that is not just about information. So it's just not full of information, but it's also about insight, expertise, and a level of wisdom that comes from experience. So thought leadership is an expression of innovative thinking that is not just full of information, but also insight, expertise, and a level of wisdom that comes from experience. Thought leadership is the expression of ideas that demonstrate you have expertise in a particular field, area, or topic. So that's the definition of thought leadership. And as I mentioned, I've been thinking about that for myself, and hopefully my reflection on it will encourage you to think about it for yourself. And when I asked myself the question, why it was important for me as an author to embrace and leverage my identity as a thought leader, I found that once I began to see myself as a thought leader, I began to more easily take the actions to do the work that I've been called to do as a thought leader in alignment with my purpose, which encompasses my various roles that I mentioned before: author, speaker, professor, podcast host. Also, as I embrace the thought leader identity, I noticed something for me that in hopes for you, if you do it, you'll see some of these things too. It qualified me as a reliable source of insight and information that could successfully impact others. Another thing it did, it further established my credibility in my field. When people think purpose or leadership or purpose, leadership purpose, they think of me. It's interesting to hear, depending on where I am and how people associate that. So this idea of embracing the thought leader identity further established my credibility in my field. And it encouraged me to focus on what I know best. So those are the three reasons why it's important for me. And I hope that you can find that those will be the reasons why it's important for you. So now you might be asking, how do I become a thought leader? Or if I'm already a thought leader, how do I further my thought leadership? Well, my answer to that would be, well, you've done the biggest part of becoming a thought leader by writing and publishing your book. So you are already a thought leader. However, since you asked the question, here are 3 thought leader strategies that you can add to your book. I'm going to give you 3 short and concise things you can do. Strategies, thought leader strategies. And one is to clearly define your area of expertise. Now, you might say, well, I'm very clear on it already. If you've been a thought leader for a while, or you're just kind of beginning this journey, I encourage you to start again and get clear on it. I did that for myself, and it was very helpful. So clearly defining your specific area of expertise. Sometimes if we've been in it for a while, it seems like if you think about the book that you've written or the books, your area of expertise might seem very broad. So I'm asking you to clearly define your specific area of expertise, because then this helps you establish credibility in your field and raise your public profile. And I'll give you an example of that. Now, this example doesn't apply, I'm guessing, doesn't apply to any of us here today listening, but it might. However, let's say there's a garden author, and this garden author focuses her work entirely on what she knows best, right? We're talking about a specific area. So she's focusing on entirely what she knows best, and that is succulents. So then as a result, she builds clout within her industry because she is specialized in that area of expertise. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about clearly defining your specific area of expertise, getting really clear on that. All right. So that was number 1, clearly define your area of expertise and do it in a specific way. We're answering the question, how do you become a thought leader or further your thought leadership? So once you clearly define it, what goes hand in hand with that is seeking opportunities to talk about your expertise. So just seeking opportunities in various ways. And we know lots of ways of doing that, not just putting a profile on social media, but really to take every opportunity, social media, in-person events, however you do it. I'm sure you know all the different ways that you can seek opportunities to talk about your area of expertise. I encourage you to do that. All right. So that was number one on how you become a thought leader or further develop your thought leadership. All right. Now here's number two. Number two, go deep. Go deep on a few topics, not many. I mean, it's okay to share your opinion on a wide variety of subjects to show, you are present and well-rounded. But the beauty about thought leadership is that success comes from streamlining your focus to a single specialty. So go deep on a few topics and not many. And you'll see me do that here and in my work, and particularly about helping authors and consultants, what I call amplify their message beyond the book, right? So go deep on a few topics versus many. That was number two on how to become a thought leader or further your thought leadership. Now let's go to number three. Number three, and this is the last one, keep up with the latest. Keep up with the latest. In other words, the latest in your industry. Because the best thought leaders continually stay current on what's happening in their fields. Continually, not just once, staying current in what's happening in their fields. So be the first or one of the first to find emerging themes and bring insights to the table that few others have or nobody else has. So be first or among the first to find emerging themes and bring insights to the table that nobody else has. Keep up with the latest. This is the third way to become a thought leader or further develop your thought leadership. Okay, so those were the 3 points. And so today we're just talking about now identifying yourself as a thought leader or further developing your sense as a thought leader and acting on that. Talked about what a thought leader is, why it's important to you, and how do you become one. And I asked myself, are authors thought leaders? And the answer for myself, and I think also for you, the answer is yes. Because authors are thought leaders, and thought leadership is a good way, I learned, to propel my work forward in the coming year. And it's a good way for you to do so too. So I encourage you to do that. Propel your work forward by becoming, embracing, and cultivating yourself as a thought leader. All right, so this is the end of our episode. And as I've mentioned in the past, if you have a book and you're thinking about expanding your message beyond the book through a course, you've been thinking about it for a long time now, I encourage you to go on over and check out my free 4-part video series that walks you through the steps on how to turn your book into what I call a masterful course. I've built on my years of expertise and experience as a college professor, a tenured professor, and just a teacher at heart, and took all the things that I learned over the years, learned from the mistakes I made, and put together a free 4-part video training to show you how to turn your book into a masterful course. So go on over to createmasterfulcourses.com, createmasterfulcourses.com, and you will find the video series there. And I hope to see you there. In the meantime, and until next time, this is Dr. Robin. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Leadership Purpose with Dr. Robin podcast. If you enjoyed it, head on over and rate and subscribe so you never miss an episode. New episodes drop every week, and I can't wait to hang out with you again soon. Meanwhile, this is Dr. Robin signing off. See you next time.